Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the articles, the match reports, and all the statistical chaos you send us, and we try to turn it into some clear, concise insight.
And today, it looks like we are strapping in for the AFL Dice Season 11 data.
We are. You've provided us with the deep cuts from, well, the drama of Round 7, those Christmas Day games, and the absolutely pivotal preview for Round 8.
The New Year's Eve blockbuster. I love that name.
Me too.
Yeah.
So our mission today is, I think, pretty focused. We need to go beyond just the scores and really extract the underlying strategic takeaways here.
Right.
We're going to try and decipher this impossibly tight ladder, understand what the big upsets tell us, and, use the source material to forecast what's coming on Monday night.
And if you enjoy narratives in sport, you're really in for a treat, because the sources you shared are pure gold.
Oh, yeah.
They confirm that Round 7 was defined less by pure skill and more by, well, pure psychological pressure. We're not just looking at scores. We are examining stories of heists, high-scoring shootouts, and massive road upsets. And these didn't just move teams on the ladder, they completely crushed any sense of stability at the top.
Okay, let's unpack that then. Let's jump straight into the chaos of Round 7. If we're talking psychological pressure, we have to start with the closest finish.
Oh, the one-point game.
The one-point game. Collingwood and Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval on Christmas Day of all days.
That margin is just brutal. Collingwood won 96 to Port Adelaide's 95, and the source material, it just nailed the description.
What does it say?
Pies steal a Christmas miracle with the last kick of the game. Absolute heist.
An absolute heist. So what does a heist really signify here? It's not just luck, is it?
No, not at all. It tells us Collingwood has that elite late-game mental fortitude. That's what separates contenders. But for Port Adelaide, the sources hint at a complete psychological breakdown.
In the final quarter.
Exactly. They dominated for long stretches, only to just falter when it mattered most. That one-point loss is season-defining. You can guarantee their coach played that final minute 50 times over Christmas lunch.
Oh, absolutely. And that kind of blow, that has to carry forward. But that wasn't the only shock, was it?
Not even close. The sources flagged two massive upsets that handed crucial losses to two top four contenders.
Okay, so let's start with the big one, Sydney.
The huge one, yeah. Sydney, coming in at a dismal 2-5, stunned the high-flying Adelaide Crows on their own home deck.
Wow.
Winning 111 to 102. The report labeled it a massive road upset.
So what happened? Did Sydney just play out of their skins, or did Adelaide collapse?
Well, what's fascinating is the sources imply Adelaide lost because they abandoned their own defensive structure. It's like they weren't prepared for the pressure Sydney brought.
And that hands a second loss to a team that was, looking pretty unstoppable.
Precisely. And the second shock hit the reigning premiers, the West Coast Eagles. Hit them hard.
The Brisbane Lions victory.
Yes. The sources called this the biggest statement of the round, and it was a demolition. 103 to 71. A 32-point margin at the Gabba.
And it's not just the score, is it? It's how they did it.
That's the key. The Lions didn't just beat the Eagles. They basically provided a strategic blueprint for the whole league on how to beat them.
So they figured out how to break that high-press defense.
That's what the sources suggest. And that statement win now makes the Lions' form, especially at the Gabba, something every team has to respect heading towards finals.
So on one hand, we have these nail-biting, mentally intense games, but on the other, we also had some high-scoring explosions.
Oh, yeah. Designed to pad those percentage columns, which, as we'll see, are now absolutely critical. The biggest win definitely helped the Geelong Cats.
They exploded, right?
Completely. 21 goals to beat St Kilda by 38 points, 137 to 99. They were just running up the margin, showing total confidence.
And GWS Giants joined that party, too. They piled on 19 goals in their 34-point win over North Melbourne.
And those high-margin wins are so vital when the ladder gets this dense. You bank those points, and that can be the difference between a home final and, fighting on the road.
Definitely.
And we should also give a quick nod to the bottom of the table before we move on. Essendon made it 2 wins in a row.
Right, against the Gold Coast Suns.
Yep. A 28-point victory, 112 to 84, and that allowed the Dons to climb off the bottom. That matters for morale, but it also means North Melbourne and Sydney are now sharing that bottom rung.
Just separated by percentage.
Exactly. The stakes for avoiding last place are already huge.
So the big question is, how did all this chaos actually translate onto the ladder? Let's unpack these standings after 7 rounds, because this density is genuinely worrying for some of those top 4 clubs.
It is statistically unprecedented at this stage of a season. We have a 4-team cluster at the very top, all of them tied on 5 wins and 2 losses.
4 teams. Who are they?
Adelaide, Richmond, West Coast, and St Kilda, all sitting on 20 points.
And what's separating them? We keep hearing about percentage being all important. So for you, the listener, who might not track every score, explain why that one metric is the only difference between being first and fourth right now.
Well, percentage is the ultimate tiebreaker, and in this kind of environment, it's a weapon. Adelaide is just narrowly leading Richmond for first place.
How narrowly?
By about 0.5%. It's minuscule. It means if Richmond wins by a slightly bigger margin than Adelaide does in round 8, say, even just a 10-point difference, Richmond jumps straight to the top.
So it incentivizes demolition jobs, not just scrappy wins.
Exactly. And the real statistical anomaly in that top 4 is St Kilda. They're sitting in 4th, despite just losing 2 straight games.
How are they still there?
They're a statistical marvel, but a very unstable one. They're holding that spot because they have the highest 4 score in the entire competition, 853 points.
Okay,
But their against score, 841 points, is also incredibly high. So their percentage is just barely hanging over 100. What's fascinating here is that this tells us they're the definition of a glass cannon.
a glass cannon. So they win big, but they also lose big.
Precisely. They are holding on to that 4th spot by the thinnest of threads from their early season goal fests.
But isn't that same volatility what makes them so dangerous? They clearly have the firepower.
They absolutely do, but volatility can really work against you in a packed field. And look who is right behind them.
The middle tier, the logjam.
An absolute logjam. This is where the pressure is going to hit hardest in round 8. We have 5 teams, all tied on 4 wins and 3 losses.
5 teams on 16 points.
Fremantle, GWS Giants, Hawthorn, Brisbane Lions, and the Geelong Cats. That is almost half the league fighting for the last 4 spots in the top 8.
That is immense pressure.
Yeah.
So for you, the learner, what does this 4 and 3 logjam really mean strategically? Are they all still in the hunt?
They are, but this isn't just a crowded leaderboard. Statistically, if you drop off the pace now, you face an enormous uphill climb.
How big of a climb?
Historically, you need a win percentage well over 60% to guarantee a top 8 finish. If one of these teams at 4-3 loses this week and falls to 4-4, well, they have to win roughly 80% of their remaining games just to scrape in.
Wow, the margins are that small.
That small. Every team in that tier is treating Monday night like a pseudo-elimination final.
Which brings us perfectly to the next segment. This is where it gets really interesting. We're transitioning straight to the round 8 schedule. It's all on Monday, December 29th.
That New Year's Eve blockbuster atmosphere. 9 games, all with seismic implications.
And the sources, they designated one clear match as the definitive game of the round.
They did. St Kilda, that volatile 5-2 side, stinging from 2 straight losses, taking on the Adelaide Crows, also 5-2, who just suffered that massive upset at home.
And they meet in Marvel Stadium. The stakes couldn't be higher. Now, the source material provided a prediction, Adelaide by 16 points.
It did.
But I have to challenge that. I mean, St Kilda has the highest 4 score in the league. Why are the sources predicting such a comfortable win for the Crows, especially after Adelaide looked so shaky last week?
That is a great question. The analysis seems to heavily factor in St Kilda's mental state after those 2 losses. Plus, Adelaide will be desperate to reestablish their defensive credibility.
So it's a bounce-back prediction.
Exactly. The sources believe Adelaide will return to their structured, controlled game, and that St Kilda's high-risk approach will finally be exposed on a quick deck like Marvel.
And the bottom line from the sources is?
Winner stays in the top 4 hunt, loser slips to 5-3 in this packed ladder. And that losing team instantly becomes vulnerable to all those 4-3 teams breathing down their necks.
Okay, so we contrast that high-stakes game with what the sources are calling the guaranteed points, the lock of the round.
That belongs to the West Coast Eagles, facing the Gold Coast Suns at Optus Stadium.
West Coast 5-2, but coming off that 32-point hiding. They need a reset.
A massive one. And the Suns are 3-4 and fading. The prediction is merciless. West Coast by 35 points in their Perth fortress.
So if you're filling out your tipping sheet, that's the one.
Safest bet on the board. The Eagles will be highly motivated to prove the Brisbane loss was just an anomaly.
Okay, beyond the lock and the game of the round, there are 2 other massive clashes happening that day.
Massive. We start with Richmond versus the Geelong Cats at the MCG. Richmond is looking ominously consistent, predicted to move to 6-2. But the Cats just put up 21 goals.
So it's structure versus firepower.
That's it. Richmond is predicted to win by 9, but the real takeaway is that if they secure that win, they cement themselves in the top 2, regardless of percentage.
And the other big one?
Melbourne versus the Brisbane Lions, also at the NCG. Melbourne is desperate at 3-4. They have to keep pace.
And they're up against the Lions, who are riding high at 4-3 after that big statement against the Eagles.
And the sources favor that momentum. They're predicting Brisbane by 14.
But wait, the source says GABA form travels.
Isn't that a bit too simplistic? Melbourne is desperate. They're at home. A team trying to salvage their season can be incredibly dangerous.
That's a highly critical point. And you're right, the prediction does lean heavily on that assumption. But our supplementary notes suggest Melbourne still has a top 5 defensive structure when they're fully committed.
Which they have to be at 3-4.
They absolutely must be. This game could be a huge pitfall for Brisbane. If Melbourne finds that defensive drive they showed in round 3, the Lions' momentum prediction could completely collapse. It's a great example of where a tip might overlook tactical desperation.
Right. Okay, finally, let's look at the dark horse of the schedule. The upset alert.
This one involves Carlton taking on Hawthorn at Marvel. Officially, the prediction is Hawthorn by 12 points.
Which would keep them right in that 4-3 hunt.
It would. However, the upset alert suggests Carlton could sneak a win. And the logic is pretty compelling because it focuses on internal decay.
What do you mean by that? Well, Carlton is grinding wins through sheer tenacity, while there's a feeling that Hawthorn's chaos finally runs out.
What does Hawthorn's chaos finally runs out actually mean? Is that a psychological thing or a specific weakness?
It's tactical fatigue. It's
Yeah.
compounded by a lack of consistent defensive transition. Hawthorn relies on high-risk, high-reward play, and round 7 showed that when their transition lines were shut down, they had no fallback.
And Carlton's just a team to exploit that.
Exactly. They thrive on contested ball and gritty midfield pressure. If Carlton pulls that off, Hawthorn slides to 4-4, and suddenly they're in major trouble.
So if we look across the board at the round 8 forecast, the overall tip is highly slanted toward the home team.
Very slanted. 7 home wins are predicted, alongside that one big statement at Marvel, which we know is the St Kilda Adelaide clash. It's setting up a chaotic start to the new year, where home ground advantage is expected to reign supreme.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? The deep dive shows us that the shock results from Christmas Day, that heist, the upsets, Brisbane's statement, they created massive volatility.
They did. They stripped the top 4 of their confidence and bunched up the middle of the ladder dangerously.
And this has created a high-stakes make-or-break Monday night where 5-2 teams are clashing to define the top 4, and those 5 4-3 teams are facing, well, statistical elimination if they don't get a win.
Precisely. The volatility is the key takeaway, and it means the prediction of 7 home wins holds tremendous power. If that happens, the logjam largely disappears and the top 4 solidifies. The whole prediction really hinges on that Melbourne versus Brisbane game.
Because Brisbane needs that win to confirm their statement.
To confirm it and move to 5-3. But they're traveling against a desperate team. If Melbourne can find the defensive discipline they need, do the Lions truly have the maturity on the road to maintain that momentum?
That's the tightrope walk.
It is. It's the walk that determines if the top 8 opens up or slams shut. Which leads to a final thought for you to consider. Given that the overall tip is for 7 home wins, which road team is most likely to break that prediction and make the biggest statement? The latter is about to get even tighter.